Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
So you guys know how Tim and I are huge fans of haunts and the haunt industry. So tonight we're super excited to welcome to the show Jan Knuth.
Hey, Jan, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, you guys. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited because we've been wanting to have somebody from the haunt industry on the show for quite a while. We've been doing the show 5 years. I think we've only had one other haunt person on here, so we were really excited.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well, that's really quite a privilege. Thanks.
Yeah.
She was a scare actor, I believe, right?
Right. Yeah. We have the scare actor on. So, Jan, you run Gray House Haunts. And you also have a new book out about women in the haunt industry. So we definitely want to talk about both of those. But before we do, I wanted you to kind of tell us how you became interested in horror.
Well, I was one of those kids that I was always kind of in the background. And I wasn't like a goth kid or that kid, but I just, my favorite band from like 5th grade on was Kiss. Mm-hmm. And you guys are probably younger than me, but back then people said that they were Satan worshipers.
I remember.
You remember that?
Oh yeah, I dressed as Ace Frehley for Halloween once, so I'm well.
Yeah, I was Paul Stanley. I should have been Ace Frehley. I had the hair for Ace Frehley, but yeah. And so people tormented me about that. I live in Nebraska, so you can imagine how that went over. And I just stuck to it. I'm like, you know what? I like this band. I like their theatrics. And a little spooky, a little on the edge for that time period. And so I was always that kid, and I loved Halloween. My mom loved Halloween. And so, I just grew up that way. And then, fast forward, I did the sexy pirate at the bar and, all those, what I consider now stupid costumes. But then my husband and I got married and we moved back into my hometown. And I thought it was like it was going to be when I was a child and there'd be just hundreds of trick-or-treaters. And I had 2 dogs that hated the doorbell. And so I made my sister go out in the front yard with me, and we sat as 2 witches with really bad British accents. And, told children we were going to eat them and throw them in the cauldron, which was just a large flower pot. It was really cheesy, but so much fun. It was so fun. And the next year there were like, I could count, but let's just say 6 people did it with us. And then the next year it was 12. And then pretty soon I had 26 actors and 500 kids in my yard.
That's awesome.
And what I found was the trick-or-treaters were fun. They're cute and they're sweet. But what I really dug was getting the older kids in the backyard and scaring the crap out of them. And I didn't know there was that side of me, and I just kind of just discovered it. And I just kept getting scarier and scarier. And it kept getting bigger and bigger until I decided to open a commercial haunt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know Tim is a big home decorator, so he does a really nice elaborate display. I think secretly he dreams of doing what you did, though, making a
definitely not even a secret. It's not even a secret.
Yeah, they're not secretly at all. Yeah, no, Tim does a good job, and like we always like I love in movies where they see that, where you see like these elaborate houses, with decorations and things. And when I was reading some of that in the book, and I was just like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. The way like she literally took her house and advanced it into this, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, so since we love haunted attractions, we'd love to know all the details and the history of how actually the Gray House haunts came up, and to be. I know you developed it from your home haunt, but we want to hear all the details about how you came up with the ideas and everything.
Well, when I did the yard haunt, my display wasn't as elaborate and amazing as some home haunters, because I was going for the scares. whether it was the little scares for small children or big scares for the older folks, but it was about the scares, not the depth of my display. And I think, I had to set up and tear down in the same 12-hour period. And I remember thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to have a building where I didn't have to tear it down? I could use wallpaper and I could, leave the props up and I could just build on that and add to it. And in 2013 was the last year we did the home haunt or yard haunt. Mine was a yard haunt. It was never in my home. But like I said, we had over 500 people and they were ruining the lawn. Gates were being broken. There was fake blood on my freshly painted walls. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do this again. And because, I'm kind of a go big or go home. Like literally, I'm either 100% or I'm zero. I am not a 52% kind of person. So it's either going to keep growing or I'm going to stop doing it. And I knew I wasn't going to stop. I knew it. It was like an addict, And so March of 2014, a lady called me and said, I found you a haunted house. And I said, I wasn't looking. And she said, well, I found one. And I went and looked at it. And it was a foreclosed home, about 3 foot deep with trash. And it was so bad, I threw the shoes away that I walked through the house in.
Oh my God.
It was bad, but I got it for a song, and that's how Gray House Haunts was born. And its name comes from my house. My home is gray.
Oh, okay.
And so it's kind of just paying respects to where I started. So it's Gray House Haunts.
That's cool. And so now I know you kind of touch on this in the book too. And I saw on the site a little bit. So there is like a little storyline you have that goes through. And I remember that you one of the fascinating things that I loved about the book is that how dedicated you are to keeping a storyline. Like I think you had described something at one point about like how like you'll go into a haunted house and then all of a sudden there'll be like a random clown running around like, that doesn't belong kind of thing. And I'm like, that's great because so many times you see those at like these elaborate so-called elaborate haunts that you pay a good money to go see at a park, and it just doesn't make sense. So what can you tell us about the storyline that Gray House Haunts has?
With the yard hunt, I had no storyline. It was just, this will scare them. And then as I researched after I bought the house, and I did so much research that year, just seriously thousands of hours. And what I found was the best haunts had a storyline. Now the customer might not know the storyline, but the actors do. And in order for them to enter into our world and really buy in and suspend disbelief, right? We have to stay on that storyline. And so mine, I don't know why. It just came about. I started naming the main characters, which is Dr. Gray and Isabel the Witch. Some of most of the other characters are fluid. I had Niles the son one year. Well, now it's Charlie. And what happened was Niles moved away and I didn't want to give his character away. So I made a new character.
But now when he returns, like for the anniversary, you could get the promotion going,
Wouldn't that be cool? In 2 years, will be 10 years.
Oh,
and so that'd be cool to have some of our, our veterans that can't be with us anymore. But yeah, it's basically Dr. Gray, Civil War era, because it is a house. I don't want to try to make it into a spaceship. So in that era, many doctors practiced from their home, or they made house calls, but usually it was some of both. And so, his doctor's office is there. So therefore we could add a morgue.
Awesome.
But since his family lives there, there's a nursery, so I can use all of these rooms and yet still play off of the doctor. As we all know, in horror, doctors are often the bad guy. So he's done terrible things to people.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
I love, yeah, that Tim and I are always big fans of haunts that do that kind of stuff, that have a thing like that. Kind of reminds me of that one in what was it, in Gatlinburg, the mysterious mansion is kind of like that, where it's just like a mansion, but it's like there's nothing that's not supposed to be in there
Right.
during it, and it kind of reminds me of that, where there was like different rooms that would be in the house. And I thought, like I said earlier too, that was what was so impressive when I was reading in your book, is that how dedicated you were to keeping that through, because you could easily get a cheap scare, obviously, if you put something that maybe doesn't belong there, but then you kind of diminish the whole thing.
It does. And I did actually my actor training Sunday, and we talked about that if they're pointing their cell phone at you to take a picture, which is not allowed, you can't say put your cell phone away, because you, as that character, cell phones don't exist. So I told them, say things like, what witchcraft is this? Put it away. But say it in your character's voice, and remember the era. Where are you at? Because if you say cell phone, or they see my water glass, or whatever it is, we left glue sticks in the doctor's office desk one year, the entire season. I was mortified. But if they see that and they recognize it, it removes them from the world. And basically what happens is it takes about 60 seconds to re-engage their brain in our world. And especially in a small haunt, that could be 1/10 of my show. And they've missed 3 scenes, 3 or 4 actors who were working hard, but we lost them. And so the easier thing to do is keep them there rather than try to get them back.
That's awesome.
I love that you have that focus on the psychology of the customer. I think that's really, really cool. I want to know kind of like what goes into preparing the haunt that, every year. Like, how early do you start, prepping?
I usually go in May, because we're not climate controlled. And so, it's like a big cavern in the winter, so you almost can't bear to be in there. But I usually go in May, kind of start looking at what winter damage there was, that kind of stuff. We usually really start on new construction like the first week of June.
So do you make a lot of changes for that, or do you pretty much have the same thing?
Up till now, I've changed 30 to 40% of the haunt every year.
Oh,
wow.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
I see in my future, I got out my crystal ball, that will lessen. Partly because I am not the youngest haunter. And also my main assistant moved away last December. So this summer has been really difficult trying to kind of piece together help. And whereas before, I had the same person 3 or 4 days a week. And so this summer's been much harder.
About how many scare actors do you use each year?
Usually about 25.
Wow. Yeah.
This year I'm at 23, but that's because I'm not using any in the front yard in the queue. Partly because the people that were trained to do that moved away. And partly because with, I don't know, whatever wave this is of COVID, I don't want my actors that close to people. And it's highly unlikely people will wear masks, even though we will recommend it. And it's a completely different form of acting, and it's much closer.
Right.
In a wide open space, you really got to get in close. And I just don't want to put my staff at risk any more than they have to be. So
right.
Yeah, we know a lot of haunts are having to do that. We were just actually at that Halloween Horror Nights. We just got back from, and their way of doing it is they literally just had some of their scare actors even wear masks that were close, and they put up like tarps
Hmm.
to block it, which was good. And because, while like, I know some people were on complaining, but Tim and I were in the mindset of like, you know what, these people are working really hard to give you a good job. It's like, why would you want them in jeopardy? Because the people that are going
Right.
to go in are probably not going to wear masks. I mean,
Well, and it's like I told my actors, I didn't open last year. And this year I decided that I can open. I do have some things set up. There's plexiglass where there wouldn't have been before, that kind of thing. I don't think I'm doing anything that will affect the scares or the quality of my show. But I also think people need to remember, particularly as a customer, that my staff, our staffs, are at much higher risk from you than you are from them.
right.
And so if I have to pick, I'm picking my staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're my responsibility. Um, Whether it's to keep them safe from a drunk or try to keep them safe from getting some kind of illness.
Yeah, no, that's another thing I noticed too in your book. That it gets mentioned a lot too, that you're very dedicated to making sure that your staff is safe in there, and that to me is really impressive because you hear so many times of like companies like like that don't like regular companies, not even haunt companies, just other companies that you hear people complain, oh, they don't worry about, they're making us go back to the office too soon, all these kind of things, and it's like, but and the fact that I can almost guarantee that your staff does not feel that way because just based off of the way you describe the measures you're taking, which is great.
I think one of the things I'm most proud of, is, I mean, yes, Candi and I wrote a book and I opened the haunt, but I think what I'm even prouder of is that um, many of these people that have been with me for years, would follow me through hell. And it's not because I'm such an amazing person or that, it's that they know I have their back. They know I will stand up for them and I won't back down. And, they're not paid to take a lot of crap. That's my job, to stand between them and an angry customer or whatever. And I'm more than willing to do that.
That's awesome. So let's actually, we mentioned the book a couple times, so let's really get into this because this was great. It's titled "Not Afraid to Slay: Women in the Haunt Industry," and I'm almost done with it now. I'm absolutely loving it, by the way.
Good.
And so, but for those who haven't got a hold of this yet, what can they kind of book would you say they can expect, like from it? Like, what would you pitch them as the book?
Well, one of the first things I always tell people is it's not a how-to. I'm not telling you how to haunt. If you learn some tips, which I think you could, that's great, but that's not what it's about. What I really wanted to do was highlight particularly women, but there's also some men that we interviewed in the book. But it's to highlight their input in this industry. Like most people, if you say, well, what does a haunted house owner look like? Well, it's a white dude in a black t-shirt with some crazy logo. He may or may not have tattoos. He may or may not be holding a beer, but that's what he looks like, and that's not true. When I first went into the commercial side in 2014, there was one other female haunt owner on the discussion board. I'm dating myself a lot on that comment, but it was like the boys club. And I realized later it wasn't necessarily discrimination. I'm sure there probably was some, but I think what it was, it just wasn't expected that a female would own a haunt and that a female would own a haunt without a male partner. Because I don't have a male partner. I'm it. I own it. And, a lot of times you see couples that do it. And so I really wanted to highlight some of these women that, are journeying down the path, whether it's a vendor or an actress or an owner, but they're on that path themselves.
That's good. Yeah, there was a story, I think you had mentioned, a brief story, not to give away a piece of the book, but I wanted to share this one because it was my favorite. When you said, I guess, that people would come up to you and comment on your holiday decorations, like your Christmas ones, and say, "Oh, what a great job." And they said that to you, but then they would go to your husband and say, "Oh, what a great job in the haunt," when it was totally reversed. And I thought that's hilarious because it's kind of totally like that. Like my wife is the one that is totally capable. We nickname her the fixer. Tim named her that because she literally is like the one that can fix anything in the house while I'm sitting there, like, like not knowing what to do with stuff. And so, and it's like, and so it cracked me up when you said that, because I'm like, it's a shame that people have that mindset. So I'm glad you kind of like,
and we all do it somewhat. We all do it somewhat. I'm guilty of it too, and I think it's just like this book and other people have written things or TV shows. Open your mind a little bit and realize that not all doctors are male and not all nurses are female. We need to mix it up a little bit and make room for everybody.
Yeah, no, and and it's funny too, because like they had that whole mindset about how and I think you mentioned this in the book too, that is like, that the women, like, or kind of, oh, how could they be scary, or why would they be into this? And so, and I have to, Tim and I just, I mean, we met so many through the podcast, but even before that, we know some of our most, like, I think most of the like ardent supporters of horror and scare and gore are female. So it's like,
absolutely,
yeah. So whatever this thing is, I like to think, I mean, maybe I'm being a little naive, but I like to think that mindset is going to change, if not changed already, because
I think it's changing. I don't think it's changed, but I think we're so indoctrinated. Girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, and we're not. And actually, I was going to go with something along that line for the title of the book, and then Candi did an outline and titled the chapters, and I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that. And then I read a title chapter and it said, Not Afraid to Slay, and I went, boom. That's it. Because it's saying, yes, we're women, but we are not afraid to do this, and we are perfectly capable of doing it. Can I lift wall panels by myself? No, but I can find someone to help with that. It doesn't have to be just me. So, yeah.
So, that's kind of a perfect segue into my next question, Jan. So how do you ensure that inclusivity translates to your haunt? Like, what do you do with your haunt to make sure that, you kind of embrace that atmosphere of inclusivity?
3 years ago, I added into my actor, we have an actor meeting, and then I do actual acting training with them. And we talk about that I do not care what color you are, what gender you are, what your sexual orientation is. I don't care. I don't even care if someone else cares, but you will be respectful. Because I can't make somebody okay with something. But while you're on my property and my staff, you will be respectful. And, I think we had a very organic cast from the beginning. And we had, I don't know, I bet half of my staff was homosexual, either gay or lesbian. And it just happened that way. I don't know how it happened. And so it was amazing, because we got to be inclusive right out the chute. Be inclusive, be kind and tolerant. And it also got to show some people in our staff that had maybe not knowingly been around someone that was of a different sexual orientation, that everybody's just a person. Just a person. They're not like some guy in the alley going to stab you, unless you're a character, of course. But, I think one of the things that you can do to be inclusive is to make sure that your social media reflects that.
Right.
Now I don't mean, you have to have a flag or something like that, but make sure, like, I live in a very white area, very white. And so if I want people of different colors, different races to feel comfortable here, I need to show someone in my social media that maybe has a little darker skin than I do. And, and I don't mean that as game playing. I mean it as a sincere, you're welcome here.
That's
that's
great.
wonderful.
No.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, that really is great to hear. And, because, and I think horror lends to that, because horror is always, the community has always been very inclusive, I think, which is good. And I'm glad it like translates into all aspects of horror, the haunt industry, the filmmaking, and stuff like that. So that's great to hear. And I'm like, and it's just, it's like with all the bad things you hear in the world, sometimes it's so nice to hear something like that, It's like,
isn't that the truth?
yeah. So I guess that to wrap things up, I wanted to, of course, give you a chance to tell our listeners where they can find information on, of course, your haunt, but also where they can get this amazing book that you've written.
Sure. They can look up Grey House Haunts on Facebook, Instagram, and then we're at greyhousehaunts.com. So they can just have a peek at some of our character photos and that kind of thing. And then Candi and I wrote Not Afraid to Slay, The Women of the Haunt Industry. And you can find that at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and also Target.com.
Oh,
wow. Nice.
Yeah, I got mine on Amazon just because it's just so easy to get stuff.
I know.
It's like right there. But yeah, no, I'm loving it. I should probably be finished. I only have maybe like 15 pages left. It's such a good book. I love it. I recommend this to everybody, fans of haunt or horror or whatever, or just to read like a great story and some great stories from the industry. It's really cool.
Well,
and
thank
Tim and I
you.
are definitely going to put this on our bucket list to somehow, I'm telling you, if we're ever in Nebraska around Halloween time, we are definitely going.
That would be awesome. That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
we would love it. And we don't want you to go easy on us. Maybe Tim, he gets a little scared at these things. He gets jumpy, but I want the full treatment. You can.
No, we don't go easy.
Okay. Yeah, that real quick too, just real quick before we let you go. That was what I loved. One of the things that there was a section in there where you gave the group dynamic, because we had just gone into, when we, like I said, we've done in haunts, and it's like usually my wife is the lead and she's like nearly impossible to scare. It's hilarious. She just walks right through.
Yeah.
I mean, literally people like will do that and she doesn't flinch. And I think it like almost confuses them slightly.
Because the woman's doing that. Yeah.
And then like, I'm usually kind of like right in the middle in there, but Tim, I think Tim, as you put it, like, I think you were the anchor the last time and you kind of got some good, not this so much at Halloween Horror Nights, but there's some times where we've been hysterical because Tim's in the last and gets the good scare.
I give off a vibe of being nervous or something. I don't know what it is.
They're watching your body language. If they're good actors, they are. Yeah. They're watching you.
Tim, we need to make a trip down here. We gotta plan this somehow and come visit this haunt, because I watched a little video on the site and read the little story. It sounds really cool and looks really cool. So
we work hard to give a quality show. We really do.
Awesome. It sounds amazing. Jan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes.
Again, it was a thrill for us to get somebody directly in the haunt industry on the show. We've been wanting that for, like we said, for some time. So I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you guys inviting me. It's been great. Thank you so much.